Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, where heartwarming stories meet powerful life lessons. Today's tale is one of unexpected generosity, resilience, and the life-changing power of kindness. It all begins when a hardworking single mother serves a legendary guest at her small-town diner, Snoop Dogg himself. What follows is a journey filled with surprises, community transformation, and a remarkable turning point that will leave you inspired. Stay with us as we explore how one simple encounter changed a life forever. If you love uplifting stories that spark joy and inspiration, make sure to comment below and tell us where you're listening from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a story from Hopeful Horizon. The morning sun pierced through the cheap window blinds of Rachel Carter's modest apartment, casting golden lines across the scuffed hardwood floor. The faint aroma of instant coffee wafted through the air as Rachel stood by the kitchen counter, stirring sugar into her chipped mug. She glanced at the time on the clock mounted above the stove, 6:32 a.m. "Mom, I can't find my sneakers." Jordan's panicked voice echoed down the narrow hallway. Rachel sighed, setting her mug aside. "Check under your bed," she called back, wiping her hands on a faded dish rag. The day had barely started, and chaos was already knocking at her door. Being a single mother was a balancing act she never quite mastered, but managed nonetheless. Between Jordan's energetic school mornings and the long, draining hours she spent working at Mel's diner, Rachel had learned to carry her exhaustion like a badge of honor. Jordan, a bright-eyed 8-year-old with a mop of curly hair, bounded into the kitchen, sneakers in hand. "Found 'em," he declared triumphantly. Rachel knelt, adjusting the laces on his shoes. "You ready for school, champ?" "Yup, we got a science project today," he said excitedly. "Miss Thomas said mine was the best in class so far." Rachel's tired eyes lit up with pride. "That's my boy. Keep making me proud, okay?" After a hurried breakfast of cereal and toast, Rachel ushered Jordan out the door, their footsteps echoing down the concrete stairwell. The city was already alive with the hum of traffic and chatter, the scent of fresh bagels mingling with exhaust fumes. Rachel kissed Jordan's forehead at the bus stop. "Be good. I'll see you after work." "Love you, Mom," Jordan said before hopping onto the school bus with a wave. Rachel watched the bus disappear around the corner, a bittersweet smile tugging at her lips. Her son was her reason for pushing through the relentless grind of life. Mel's Diner sat at the corner of a busy intersection in Los Angeles, its neon sign flickering stubbornly in the daylight. The retro-themed eatery had seen better days, but it retained a charm that kept regulars coming back for greasy breakfasts and endless coffee refills. Rachel tied her apron around her waist, greeting her coworkers with a polite nod. The familiar clatter of dishes and the hiss of the griddle greeted her as she stepped behind the counter. "Morning, Rachel," said Gus, the grizzled cook flipping pancakes with practiced ease. "Morning, Gus. Busy yet?" "Not yet, but the Saturday crowd's coming. Brace yourself," he warned with a smirk. Rachel smiled faintly, grabbing a notepad and pen. She moved through the diner with practiced efficiency, taking orders and refilling coffee cups. The regulars were already seated. Mr. Thompson with his crossword puzzle, Mrs. Ramirez with her knitting needles, and the chatty group of construction workers by the window booth. Despite the hustle, Rachel's mind wandered to the stack of unpaid bills sitting on her kitchen table. Rent was due next week, and Jordan's school fees loomed like a dark cloud. She took a steadying breath, reminding herself to stay focused. Around midday, the familiar hum of the diner shifted. Conversations hushed, and heads turned toward the entrance. Rachel, wiping down a booth near the window, looked up to see the cause of the sudden silence. There he was, Snoop Dogg, unmistakable with his signature swagger and laid-back style. He wore a sleek blue tracksuit, gold chains glinting under the diner lights. Dark shades concealed his eyes, but there was no mistaking that smooth, confident presence. Rachel's heart skipped a beat. Celebrities weren't exactly a common sight at Mel's Diner. She froze for a moment before regaining her composure. Snoop sauntered toward an empty booth near the jukebox, nodding politely at the gawking patrons. "What's good, y'all?" he greeted casually, his voice smooth as silk. The diner buzzed with excitement as whispers spread like wildfire. Rachel took a steadying breath and approached the booth with her notepad. "Good afternoon," she managed, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "What can I get for you?" Snoop tilted his shades down slightly, giving Rachel a warm smile. "Pancakes, eggs, and coffee. Black." Rachel scribbled down the order. "Got it. Coming right up." As she walked back to the kitchen, Rachel felt the weight of every eye in the diner on her. She relayed the order to Gus, who raised an eyebrow. "Well, ain't that something? Snoop Dogg in our humble little joint," Gus muttered, flipping the pancakes with renewed enthusiasm. Rachel chuckled nervously. "Yeah, no pressure or anything." When the order was ready, Rachel carefully balanced the plate and coffee mug, making her way back to Snoop's booth. "Here you go," she said, setting the food down. "Thanks, Ma," Snoop said, his tone genuine. "Diner's got that old school vibe. I like it." Rachel smiled, her nerves easing slightly. "Glad you think so. Been here for years." They exchanged light conversation as Snoop ate, his demeanor relaxed and friendly. Rachel found herself laughing at his anecdotes about life on the road and the best diners he'd visited. "You got good energy," Snoop said, leaning back in the booth. "Keep that up." Rachel's smile faltered for a moment, the weight of her struggles threatening to surface. "Thanks. Just doing my best." Snoop nodded thoughtfully, as if sensing there was more to her story. But he didn't press. When he finished his meal, Snoop pulled out a piece of paper, folded it carefully, and tucked it under the receipt. "Stay up, Ma," he said, with a casual wave as he stood to leave. Rachel watched him walk out, the bell above the door jingling softly in his wake. The diner buzzed with chatter once again, patrons still reeling from the unexpected celebrity visit. Curiosity gnawed at Rachel as she picked up the receipt. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded the note. What she read brought tears to her eyes. "You're doing better than you think, Queen. Don't give up. P.S. Check with your manager." Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced with questions. What did he mean by "check with your manager"? Heart pounding, she approached the counter where her manager, a burly man named Frank, was busy tallying receipts. "Hey, Frank," Rachel began hesitantly. "Snoop left this note. Said to check with you?" Frank's expression shifted from confusion to realization. "Oh yeah, almost forgot." He reached under the counter and pulled out an envelope. "He told me to give you this." Rachel stared at the envelope, disbelief washing over her. What was inside? The answer would change everything. Rachel stood by the kitchen pass-through, nervously tapping her pen against her palm as Gus plated the last of Snoop Dogg's pancakes. A wave of anxiety rolled through her chest. She'd been serving customers for years, but this was different. This wasn't just some regular diner guest asking for a coffee refill. This was Snoop Dogg, a living legend, sitting casually in a corner booth as if Mel's Diner were his personal hangout spot. "You good, Rach?" Gus asked, arching a bushy brow as he slid the plate onto the counter. "Yeah," Rachel lied, picking up the warm dish with both hands. "Just don't want to mess this up, you know?" Gus smirked. "It's pancakes, not rocket science. You'll be fine." Rachel forced a smile, but her pulse still quickened as she made her way back to Snoop's table. Her sneakers squeaked slightly against the linoleum floor, the sound amplified by the hushed murmurs still lingering in the diner. Everyone was stealing glances at the iconic rapper, but Snoop seemed completely unfazed, relaxed with one arm draped across the back of the booth. "Here you go," Rachel said, setting the plate down gently. "Pancakes, eggs, and black coffee." "Appreciate it, Ma," Snoop said smoothly, adjusting the cuffs of his blue tracksuit. "Smells fire already." Rachel's lips quirked into a nervous smile. "Hope it tastes as good as it smells." Snoop nodded with that signature coolness. "If it don't, I ain't gonna hold it against you." Rachel chuckled, her tension easing just a bit. "Thanks for that." For a few moments, she lingered by the table, unsure whether to leave him in peace or keep talking. Against her better judgment, she decided to take a chance. "So, what brings you to Mel's? Not exactly a five-star spot." Snoop cut into his pancakes, the syrup glistening under the diner lights. "I like spots like this. Got soul, you feel me? Ain't about fancy lights or crystal plates. Just real people and real food. That's what I vibe with." Rachel nodded, warmth blooming in her chest at the compliment. "We try our best." "You doing more than trying, Queen," Snoop said, pointing his fork at her like he was making a serious point. "You holding it down." Rachel's breath caught for a second. The genuine affirmation from someone like Snoop hit harder than she expected. She wasn't used to hearing praise, especially after years of scraping by and putting on a brave face for her son. "Thanks," she said softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Got a lil man at home?" Snoop asked casually, noticing the glint of a child's drawing charm on her necklace. "Yeah," Rachel said, smiling faintly. "Jordan, he's 8, smart kid, keeps me going even when things get tough." Snoop leaned back, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "Sounds like you raising a king." Rachel blinked back sudden tears. "Just trying to do right by him, you know." "I feel that," Snoop said with a slow nod. "Ain't easy, but you pushin'. That's what matters." The conversation settled into a comfortable lull as Snoop continued his meal. Rachel, not wanting to overstay her welcome, excused herself to tend to other customers. But she couldn't help glancing back at his booth every now and then, still in disbelief that this moment was even happening. By the time Snoop finished eating, the diner had returned to its usual hum of clinking dishes and casual conversations. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, then reached into his pocket. Rachel, watching from the counter, assumed he was pulling out cash for the check. Instead, Snoop carefully folded a small piece of paper, tucking it under the receipt with a deliberate motion. "Stay up, Ma," he said with a casual wave as he stood to leave, his chains glinting under the fluorescent lights. Rachel watched him walk toward the door, the bell jingling softly as he exited. The diner seemed to exhale collectively, the surreal moment finally passing. Heart still racing, Rachel made her way back to the booth to clear the table. She picked up the folded note, expecting a simple thank you or maybe a playful autograph. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. The message hit her like a punch to the gut. "You're doing better than you think, Queen. Don't give up, P.S. Check with your manager." Rachel's breath caught in her throat, her vision blurring with sudden tears. The weight of the words pressed against her chest, unraveling the tightly wound tension she carried every day. She wasn't used to hearing that she was doing well. Most days, she barely felt like she was surviving. "Rachel." Frank's gruff voice pulled her back to reality. She wiped her eyes quickly, folding the note into her pocket. "Yeah?" Frank, the diner's burly manager, stood by the register with an envelope in hand. "Snoop said to give this to you before he left. Almost forgot." Rachel's brows furrowed as she approached him. "What is it?" Frank shrugged. "Beats me. He just said it was for you." With trembling hands, Rachel took the envelope and opened it cautiously. Her eyes widened as she pulled out a crisp check. The amount scrawled on it made her knees weak. $10,000. A soft gasp escaped her lips. This can't be real." Frank scratched his head. "Looks real to me. Guess he liked the pancakes." Rachel's mind spun as she tried to process what was happening. $10,000 was more money than she'd seen in one place in her entire life. It was enough to pay off rent, clear bills, and maybe even start saving for Jordan's future. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of overwhelming gratitude. She clutched the note and checked to her chest, her heart pounding with disbelief and joy. Snoop Dogg hadn't just left a generous tip. He'd left a lifeline. As she stood there, the clatter of the diner fading into the background, Rachel realized something profound. Sometimes, miracles came in the most unexpected forms, from strangers who saw your struggle and decided to lift you up. And today, Snoop Dogg had done just that. Rachel stood by the register, her breath uneven as Frank handed her the sealed envelope. The check she had already received still felt surreal, tucked safely in her apron pocket. But there was something about this second envelope, marked with her name in elegant looping handwriting, that made her pulse quicken. "Guess today's your lucky day, Rach," Frank said gruffly, though a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Rachel nodded absently, her fingers trembling as she broke the seal. She unfolded the letter inside, eyes widening at the contents. Along with a neatly printed message was another check, but this one was for an amount so staggering that her knees nearly buckled. $50,000. Her lips parted in shock, but before she could fully process the number, her gaze shifted to the accompanying note. Queen, life ain't just about surviving. It's about thriving. I see your grind, and I want to help you and Lil Man shine. This check should cover debts and then some. Use it how you see fit. And check this invite. Hope to see you there. Stay blessed, Ma. Rachel swallowed hard, blinking rapidly as tears threatened to spill. Her eyes dropped to the crisp invitation beneath the note. It was embossed with gold lettering. Special event, hosted by Snoop Dogg, celebrating single parents and community leaders. The date was only a week away. Frank leaned on the counter, eyebrows raised. Well, what is it? Rachel shook her head, still dazed. It's an invitation to an event, and this... She held up the check, struggling to find the words. This is more than I ever imagined. Frank let out a low whistle. That man's got a big heart, huh? Rachel laughed through her disbelief, tears streaming down her face. You could say that. She thought about the pile of bills on her kitchen table, the mounting debt that had kept her awake at night, and the constant ache of knowing she couldn't give Jordan the life he deserved. But now, everything was about to change. Later that evening, Rachel sat at the worn kitchen table in their modest apartment, the check and invitation laid out before her. Jordan, oblivious to the magnitude of the moment, was sprawled on the living room floor building a Lego spaceship. Mom, look, he called out excitedly. It's got lasers and everything. Rachel forced a smile, her heart swelling with love. That's amazing, baby. She ran her fingers over the invitation, the weight of Snoop Dogg's generosity pressing against her chest. The money would pay off their debts and cover Jordan's tuition at the private school she had only dreamed of affording, a place where he could thrive, away from the overcrowded classrooms and underfunded programs that held him back. For the first time in years, hope flickered in Rachel's heart, and she wasn't going to let it go. The event venue was nothing short of spectacular. Strings of twinkling lights crisscrossed the open-air space, and tables adorned with vibrant floral arrangements dotted the lawn. The scent of barbecue wafted through the air, mingling with the sounds of soulful music. Rachel clutched Jordan's hand tightly as they approached the entrance, her nerves jangling despite the festive atmosphere. Mom, is this a party? Jordan asked, his wide eyes taking in the scene. Something like that, Rachel said, smiling down at him. A really special one. A familiar voice called out from ahead. There she is, the queen herself. Rachel's heart skipped a beat as Snoop Dogg strode toward them, dressed in a sleek blue suit with gold accents. His smile was warm, genuine, and disarming. Glad y'all could make it, Snoop said, extending his hand. Rachel shook it, still a bit starstruck. Thank you for inviting us, and for everything else. I don't even know how to begin to thank you. Snoop waved her gratitude off with a casual laugh. Ain't about thanks, Ma. It's about community, you feel me? We lift each other up around here. Jordan tugged on Rachel's arm, his eyes wide. Mom, is that the guy from your playlist? Rachel laughed, her cheeks flushing. Yeah, that's him. Snoop crouched down to Jordan's level, his tone playful. What up, lil man? You taking care of your mama? Jordan grinned shyly. Yeah. Good, Snoop said, ruffling his hair. Keep doing that. He straightened up, gesturing toward the stage, set up at the far end of the lawn. We got some powerful stories to share tonight. Hope you're ready to inspire some folks, Rachel. Rachel blinked, confused. Wait, me? You got a story, Queen, and people need to hear it. An hour later, Rachel found herself standing on the stage, the bright lights making it hard to see the audience clearly. Her heart pounded in her chest, but Snoop's reassuring nod from the sidelines gave her the courage to speak. She took a steadying breath. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel, and I'm just a mom trying to make it. The crowd fell silent, their attention fully on her. For years, I've worked long shifts at a diner, doing my best to provide for my son, Jordan. There were times when I didn't know how I was going to pay rent or keep the lights on, but I kept pushing forward because giving up wasn't an option. Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. Then one day, something incredible happened. Snoop Dogg walked into the diner, and not only did he enjoy the pancakes, she said with a nervous laugh, but he saw me. He saw my struggle and decided to help. Tears filled her eyes. Because of his generosity, I can pay off my debts. I can send Jordan to a school where he'll thrive. And more importantly, I've learned that there are people out there who care, people who want to lift others up. The crowd erupted into applause, cheers echoing through the night. Snoop joined her on stage, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. Rachel ain't just a survivor, she's a fighter, and we need more folks like her out here changing the game. As the applause died down, Snoop turned to Rachel with a grin. By the way, Queen, I got one more surprise for you. Rachel's brows furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? Snoop pulled a mic from his pocket. I'm offering you a job, Ma. How'd you like to run a community outreach program for my foundation? Help uplift other single parents and folks just trying to make it? Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Are you serious? As a heart attack, Snoop said with a grin. Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she nodded. Yes, I'd love that. The crowd roared with approval as Snoop hugged her briefly. Later that night, as Rachel and Jordan walked back to their car, the weight of the day settled over her like a warm blanket. Mom, Jordan said quietly. Yeah, baby? Are things gonna be different now? Rachel smiled, her heart full. Yeah, Jordan, things are gonna be so much better. As they drove home under the blanket of stars, Rachel reflected on how one ordinary day at the diner had changed their lives forever. And for the first time in a long time, the future looked bright. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of hope, resilience, and life-changing kindness. Rachel's story reminds us that even on the toughest days, generosity and compassion can create new paths we never imagined possible. If you've been inspired by this story, don't forget to leave a comment and share your thoughts. Let us know where you're listening from. We love hearing from our global community. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss more powerful stories from Hopeful Horizon. Until next time, stay hopeful, stay kind, and remember that one act of kindness can change everything.